As is usually the case this time of year, there's been a lot of interesting rumors going around here lately. While some are kind of off the wall per se, others just might have some merit to them. In this video, we're going to be going over a few players whose names have been circulating around the rumor mill for a hot minute. In doing so, we'll be attempting to make sense of some of the proposed destinations for them as well. And with that, here are 3 NHL players and the interesting proposed destinations that have come about for them. Recently, fans in Beantown were overjoyed as they witnessed not only their captain Patrice Bergeron getting an extension, but also the return of longtime Bruin David Krejci as well. Therefore, the idea that GM Don Sweeney could try and recruit yet another member of the 2011 Stanley Cup roster has been proposed. Recently, Jimmy Murphy of Boston Hockey Now published an intriguing article that made a case for veteran Milan Lucic to be brought back into the fold in Boston. Reason being, Murphy in summary stated that the Bruins have been lacking the grit and sandpaper side of the game that Lucic brings to the playing surface. At 34 years of age, there's no getting around the fact that Lucic has slowed down substantially in the latter stages of his career. Last season, for instance, the forward was only able to record 21 points, with 10 of those being goals. Now, it's important to note that despite having a cap hit of $6 million for next season, Edmonton did retain some salary when they dealt Lucic to Calgary. Even though it's not a lot, this brings the amount down to $5.25 million for the final season. Murphy indicated that his belief was that if GM Brad Treliving was able to conserve some cap space after re-signing Andrew Margiotta and Oliver Killington, then retaining some of his salary would be more plausible. And according to Puckpedia.com, it is possible for a single contract to have salary retained from 2 different teams. But it all depends on how much Sweeney would be willing to give up in order to make a reunion possible. Lucic, who has a modified no-trade clause on the final year of his 7-year contract, would have the privilege of submitting an 8-team no-trade list if he was dealt. But we all know he wouldn't be adding Boston to that list at all. Personally, even though he'd be playing bottom 6 minutes, I think this move has a better chance of happening than the others on this list, especially if salary was retained. Most of us by now know the story fair and well in Chicago. Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are the 2 remaining players from the Dynasty era and aren't exactly eager to be part of the current rebuild. Therefore, either the duo who signed their last contract simultaneously plays out their final year in Chicago, or they're traded elsewhere. Toews, who has been the more vocal of the 2, hasn't held back one bit regarding his thoughts on the rebuild in Chi-Town. The captain recently opened up to Mark Lazarus of The Athletic and said in part, "At the end of the day, we're talking about a 5-year plus process, according to Kyle. So that part of it doesn't sound appealing to me at all. I can't speak for Kaner, but I definitely feel that the amount of turnover our team has gone through every single year, these last 3 or 4 years, that's where it gets really, really draining and exhausting," Toews says. For GM Kyle Davidson, for your captain to come out and say these types of comments, it can't be good for morale. Therefore, if he were to be traded, it would be likely a welcomed move and allow for a cultural shift. Recently, a couple of Colorado-based media outlets proposed the possibility that Toews could be the replacement that the Avalanche need if they can't re-sign Nazem Kadri. Toews, who will have a $10.5 million cap hit for the last time this upcoming season, has a full no move clause on his contract. Even though the clause probably wouldn't be the issue, the amount it would hypothetically cost to obtain his services would be. Adrian Dater of Colorado Hockey Now proposed the idea of the Hawks retaining half of his salary, which would make the move a little more plausible. However, in my opinion, deciding to replace Nazem Kadri with Jonathan Toews just wouldn't be acceptable. Sure, Toews is a great leader, but he's declined a lot and wouldn't be a suitable replacement for a contending team. Maybe on a team that has a lesser margin for error and expectations, it would make sense at 50% retained, especially on a young team that's in need of some experience. After just recording 31 points after 71 games played last season, Toews would realistically be a huge downgrade from Kadri in the end. Things have been pretty uncertain for quite a while in Long Island. Since GM Lou Lamoriello has been incredibly silent for most of the offseason, this has allowed for tons of speculation to come about throughout the hockey world. From Nazem Kadri to JT Miller, the possible acquisitions that the GM could try and target have been ever-changing. In an even more interesting twist, however, here recently was the concept that Lamoriello would have the audacity to actually trade away his star player, Mathew Barzal. Wild, I know, I thought so too. Despite the lunacy of it though, Jimmy Murphy, who we referenced earlier, entertained the possibility of Lamoriello deciding to trade away Barzal in order to make room to sign Nazem Kadri. Now you may be able to remember my hunch that Kadri may decide to sign with Detroit before free agency came about. I'd actually be willing to go out on a limb here and say that, to me, it's more likely that Kadri signs with the Wings than the team trading for Barzal instead. Obviously though, from a Detroit side of things, it would make some sense. Barzal's 25, in the prime of his career. Bringing him in would accelerate the rebuild, and the Wings could afford his cap hit in the short term. On the flip side though, it would be a puzzling move for Lou to make, considering that the team's already the oldest in the league, and this would definitely not go over well with the passionate Islanders fan base.